Have you thought about creating your own clone, but just don't quite know where to start? Have you found a different platforms, Synthesis, Delphi, others, and you thought, well, this looks good, but I still feel lost? Well, our guest today can guide you through the process. Very happy to bring on board today Dr. Gordon Jones, who is the creator of cloneyourself.cc. Gordon, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure, man. It's good to see you.
Now, I'm always happy to meet another clone aficionado, but especially one that also cares about pickleball. And I'm hoping you can improve my game. I played last night. I try to play 3-4 times a week with my wife.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And I guess you would call me a 3.0 player. I'm hoping to get some tips from you today as we dive right into your clone. But first of all, tell us what brought you to this journey of digital cloning.
Oh, actually, I just had this conversation about 15 minutes ago before we got on together. So I was in health tech before. As a matter of fact, for my doctoral research, I researched in the 90s how healthcare could adopt the internet to better engage and communicate with their patients. So that was my doctoral dissertation that I actually published in 2001. And so I've been on that journey in healthcare since 2001. So I've been building things in technology for both healthcare and emergency management, but then also got into blockchain and cryptocurrency early on. And I used to teach. I retired from the University of South Carolina. So everything I learn new, I like to share with others.
Let's talk specifically about healthcare. I mean, for me, I can't imagine any doctor or surgeon or professor of medicine not having a clone in, let's say, 7 years. But for right now, the immediate reaction with a lot of people in the medical community is, oh my gosh, we're highly regulated. What if it gave bad advice? No, we can't do that, because they fought telemedicine for a long time. And hey, some of my best friends are doctors. Some of my best clients are major hospitals, but they tend to be slow because they do have a lot more regulation. There's no doubt. And there's HIPAA and there's all sorts of things. I think that you can simply tell your clone, someone asks you to write a prescription, you're going to have the clone say, I can't do that. You need to call the doctor's office.
That's right.
And it would be so much more accessible to patients to be able to talk to someone. There was a major study, I'm sure you saw it just 2 weeks ago in the New York Times, by a doctor saying his chat, he was using a chat bot. He said, my chat bot is actually a better doctor than I am, has a better bedside manner because it's patient, it's thorough, it doesn't get tired. So wondering what your predictions are on clones really entering and serving a major role in the healthcare world.
Well, we've already cloned a pediatrician. His name is Dr. John Allred in Ogden, Utah. And so you can go to cloneyourself.cc and actually have a conversation with him. It's built on the basic understandings of care, standards of care for a pediatrician when they can share information without seeing the patient. So before they see the patient. So like you go there, you just ask them basic questions about, hey, John has got a rash. What should I do? And he's going to instruct you on what you need to do to work on the rash, and then and then come in and schedule an appointment. Right. So it's all
forgive
around.
me, I just wanted to show people what we're talking about with Clone Yourself. I mean, here's one of the pages, but if they go to cloneyourself.cc, they can find a lot more about your creations and specifically what you're doing. Although it's taking me to the pickleball page.
That's okay. Go down on the left menu. Just go down where you found the Pickleball Jones. There's John Allred right there. You almost had him right underneath Dara. There you go.
Right there. So he's a pediatrician.
Pediatrician.
And has his clone right here where you can talk to him at this point? Are there any plans to have video for him?
If he elects to do that, yes. I've actually found that some people just like having their icon or their logo up there, or just having the voice conversation. They haven't
Mhm.
really gotten to the video part yet.
Yeah.
Um,
Now,
uh,
how do you build a brain for a pediatrician? Because it was relatively easy with me, and I assume with
yeah,
you, because I've written a gazillion books and online courses and YouTube channels. I just click, 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 and I've uploaded, I believe at this point, 15 million words of stuff I've written or said.
wow,
And if you're a
that's a lot.
pediatrician,
Yeah,
you're not recording the conversations you have with patients typically for confidentiality
right.
purposes. Is your pediatrician able to upload general scientific books and then give citations when
Yeah,
their answers?
yes. So that, and then also he's a blogger, so he's already written
Okay,
some good
so he is able to
content.
put in a lot of his own intellectual
Yeah, he
property.
hadn't written a book yet, but has written some blog posts. And then and then he suggested some specific medical content that he
Mhm.
uses that he's used in his training and using in his practice. And then
Mhm.
all of that's referenced and cited
Mhm.
whenever a comment comes back. If it references that material, then it cites it
And,
appropriately.
and we should point out for people watching this, there's a lot of different cloning systems. There's only one I know of right now that is truly interactive and built for subject matter experts like Gordon, like me, like Dr. John Alred, and that is the Delphi.ai platform. I mean, that's the one is the underlying technology for what you use, and it is what
Right.
I use too. And it has a button where you just push it, and then with every answer your clone gives, it will give the citation of where in your clone's brain it's pulling the data from. So
Right.
it's basically giving, not basically, it is giving citations to
Yeah.
reference to show that it's not just hallucinating, which is a problem sometimes with generative AI.
That's right. That's right. And and being able to converse with it either via chat or voice. So, and you'll know this, but for the audience, if you're talking like this, if we're talking like this with the clone, then you can switch over to the chat, and that conversation is there for you to copy if you wish.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you're doing voice or video, the conversation is still being saved as a chat. So that's one
Mm-hmm.
of the great things I love about it. But yeah, all the other platforms out there have the ability to clone people, and the problem is they have to upload the script that the clone is going to give for that episode, right?
Yeah.
So if it's answering an FAQ, then it has a specific script it's following to answer that particular question. Where, like you were saying, it's our clones can have free flowing conversations like what we're doing on this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's what I'm so excited about. Because when I look back at my own career, I started doing media training and communication skills training 40 years ago,
Yeah.
right up the road from you in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I always found when I can work one-on-one with a client, video camera, rehearse, get them on camera a dozen times in a day, there was always dramatic improvement because everything was geared towards that person. It wasn't me giving a speech. It was highly interactive, lots of feedback, iterations. They got to the point where they were great. Now, fast forward, I started doing online training in 1998, which was way too early. Lost money for about 15 years. But then, 10 years ago or so, it really took off. And after the pandemic, it skyrocketed.
Right.
And I've got 2 million students. But the problem is when you take a video course from me or anyone, it's a passive experience. You're sitting back watching, and as much as I think I'm fascinating, some people are watching me and checking text, email, and everything else. It's a passive experience. It doesn't genuinely create transformational experiences, and that's what drew me to clones. I'm like, wow, now I can actually do what worked well for me and customers and clients all over the world for years. But now it's affordable and scalable because I don't have to fly to Bangkok to do the training, which I've
Right.
done before and is fun, but you can't do that every day. Clients don't have to fly to me. I don't have to get up at 3 in the morning if someone needs something. So that's
So that
why I'm
that
so
and
excited
that's
about it.
so how we're doing that in pickleball. So you like pickleball, you're a pickleball
Yes.
player. So we have cloned Scott Moore. He's the winningest champion in the sport of pickleball. He's an inductee into the Pickleball Hall of Fame, and he's been world champion for like the last 10 years.
Mhm.
So we cloned him. So he had created an online course that was successful for the previous 5 years or so. Well, we brought that into Pickle Zone, and then we added the clone to each lesson. So you watch the 10 to 15-minute video. Then he assigned you some drills to go do on the pickleball court. If you have questions, then you can ask his clone. And then when you come back after drilling, you might have some more questions. The next stage, because our clones can see, is we want to train the clone to absorb the video of you playing so that the clone can then give you feedback based upon a video of you playing pickleball. So that's like the next
Now,
stage that we're
what's
doing.
the timeline for it? Because things are happening very quickly with cloning technology. I mean, it
Yeah.
just seems like every day there's some new invention. Like all of
Yeah.
a sudden I'm fluent in 32 languages, which is exciting. The visual aspect, I know my clone can take a picture of me. So if I ask my clone, like now, and say, "Hey, I'm going to go on CNBC. What do you think of how I look? Do I look comfortable or nervous or authoritative and relaxed?" It will say, "Okay, TJ, your backdrop looks nice and your studio looks nice, your lighting looks nice, but you're holding a pen and that can make you seem nervous and uncomfortable." But what it's
Nice.
doing, it's taking a snapshot.
Right.
If I say, "Am I moving my hands too quickly or too slowly?" It can't do that yet. Are you saying your clone
So
can
when
now
you're
actually
talking
see
to
video?
so when you're talking to your clone through video,
Yes.
you're saying it can't see that you're moving your hands around.
It doesn't see the
Okay.
video. It's taking snapshots. At least that's how it was
Okay, I get it.
described to me by the technologist at
Okay.
Delphi.
That is
But maybe
probably
there's been an
true.
innovation in the last week
Yeah.
and I'm not even aware of it.
Yeah. So Delphi is not doing the training on the pickleball video. We've got another technology,
Okay.
another AI technology, and you can, if you go to the Pickle Zone training center, picklezone.com, I wrote a book on AI in sports, and it talks way more in depth in how the AI can analyze your motion, where the ball goes on the court, whether you won that point or not. Are you hitting your backhand or forehand? So those are the things we already can do through AI, video AI.
Okay. And
What
what
I'm working
platform, what underlying technology are you using for that? That's fascinating.
So there's several different AI technologies that are embedded in that ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a one bet. It's not a one platform. Now there's a couple of companies that are doing it. One is Swing Vision. So they've been around a long time for tennis. There's a company called Stupa that's been around for a while in ping pong.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a new company called Pickleball Vision. It's PB.Vision. They've been focusing specifically on pickleball. So what I want to do is be able to take the video analytics that they provide through their video and then feed that into the clone of Scott Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Moore will understand it and be able to give them back feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're working on over at Pickle Zone.
Okay, well, that's exciting. Let's share with our audience because I know some people are saying, "Enough talking, TJ. Let's actually check this thing out." So here we are on cloneyourself.cc, which is your company,
And
and
the
you
dot
have
.cc, what do you think the dot .cc stands for?
copy clone or something like that.
Carbon copy.
Carbon copy. Yeah, even though we're not carbon based
Yeah,
anymore.
we don't
Okay,
do that anymore. But hey,
let's
when you do CC on your email or BCC,
yes.
it's
So let's take a look at this.
all right. So let's hope it works, because one of the problems I've found is just having a webinar video and then trying to communicate and it being recordable.
It
It's a little,
sometimes does slow things down.
yeah. So
Hi,
I
Gordon. I have been playing pickleball for almost 3 years now. I seem to have peaked at like a 3.0. I play people who are 2.0, 2.5. They think I'm a superstar. I play someone even a little bit better than I am, and I fall apart. It just seems like I've plateaued. What should I do?
So the problem is we on our side can't hear the clone talking.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry. I must have stopped the share and then started it again, and without doing the correct. Oh, I know what I did. I changed one setting earlier. So let me do it again because you were sounding great. It sounded
Oh,
great. Let
good.
me do
Well,
the
thank you.
share again. Thank you for letting me know and not just in silence thinking TJ's a moron. So thank you for
Oh,
telling.
no. Because that's the problem I've had when
Yes.
trying to do Zoom calls and sharing my clone.
Yeah. So let's do
So
that
let's see if
again.
that
It
works.
was speaking to me. And
Okay.
we're going to do that again. By the way, if you're just joining us, I am speaking to Gordon Jones. He is a longtime entrepreneur, tech and healthcare expert, and now an expert on digital cloning. He's the founder of cloneyourself.cc. We're looking at one version of his many clones. This one, near and dear to my heart, is about pickleball. He's going to answer my questions about pickleball, which it did well a moment ago, but I foolishly had the wrong setting on. And tell me if it doesn't work this time.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Gordon Jones. What's on your mind today?
We can hear him. That's awesome.
I go, and you're seeing it as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Gordon, my name is TJ, and I've been playing pickleball for 3 years. And when I play with and I think I'm about a 3.0, but I've just stagnated. If I play with people who are even a little bit better, it just spirals downward quickly. Next thing you know, I'm hitting it a little too high. They're smashing away every point, and it's embarrassing. How can I get off of this 3.0 plateau?
Hopefully your mic. Oh, there we go. Hey, Gordon, can you answer his question? I wonder if he can hear because of the settings now, the way
Well,
they are.
typically that's, and by the way, this has happened to me when I've done demonstrations, and that is part of the challenge of doing demonstrations. Let me call it again because I did authorize use of my mic, and it did hear me before and was giving great answers. So let me try it again. I don't. Sometimes there's just a glitch with these. I mean, it is technology. It's a new technology, and it's a technology that's a combination of a lot of different platforms, as you and I know. And at any one point, somebody can be recalibrating something.
Hello, I'm Gordon Jones. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Gordon. Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. It sounds like you're in a space that's both creative and professional with that modern setup around you. Let's dive into what you're working on or any challenges you're facing, whether it's about enhancing.
So, Gordon, here's my big challenge. I've been playing pickleball for 3 years, and I'm sort of stuck at a 3.0, and it's very frustrating. Sometimes I'll play someone younger. They just destroyed me. I'll say, "Oh, how long have you been playing?" I'm thinking they'll say, "Oh, 5 years." They're like, "Oh, you know what? This is the fourth time I played, and I started a month ago." And it's just very depressing. What advice can you give me?
The pickleball plateau. It's a common challenge, but don't let it get you down. Remember, improvement in sports isn't always linear. First, let's consider the fundamentals. Are you focusing on consistent and controlled shots? Sometimes it's about mastering the basics before moving on to more advanced techniques. Also, think about your practice routine. Are you engaging in specific drills to target your weaknesses? Structured practice sessions can be incredibly beneficial. Recording your matches and analyzing them can provide insights into areas where you can improve. It's like having a mirror that reflects your gameplay back to you, allowing you to see
Well,
what works and what doesn't.
shame on me, because all day long I tell people, record yourself, record yourself, record yourself if you want to get to be a better speaker. And I think I've done it maybe once in pickleball. So I really should do that. So shame on me. That's a good advice that I needed to hear. What other tips can you give me? Gordon, did I lose you? Can you still hear me?
Interesting.
So the first tip was great. And again, we all have these connectivity issues, but I thought I would grade that pretty favorably as far as just solid advice. And I do need to do that. It's something I can do because I can take my cell phone and set it up so that it's recording me playing, or maybe bribe my daughter into recording me while
So what I
my
will
mother and
tell
I
you,
was
just
playing.
the way that you can get above it is by drilling more rather than playing more.
Mm-hmm.
So if you
My problem is the only time I play is in the evenings, and there's open play, and there's waiting
right,
for every court. So,
yep,
I
yep.
mean, I'm here in Florida. The weather is changing now, but I could do it at 2 p.m., but it's 110 degrees with humidity, because then there's a free court.
Right.
So that's kind of the challenge here. Is it's really hard to play. It's either too hot to play if the courts are empty, or it's a great time to play, but the courts are packed and you've got to be on there with 4 people with the paddles lined up, or you're not going to get to play.
So one of the good things that's happening in the sport of pickleball is there are about 25 different companies who are franchising the creation of indoor pickleball clubs. So pretty soon there'll be thousands of indoor dedicated pickleball clubs. So what I did yesterday was I went over, I got the Ernie ball machine at 2:00 in the afternoon. There was only one other court used, and I spent an hour hitting forehands, backhands, dinks, and all that. And that is what will eventually improve you, get you over that plateau. Because it's really about practicing the shot. Once you've gotten the technique of the shot down, then just practicing it over and over again.
There are a lot of these companies. I mean, my wife and I went to one just a couple of weeks ago called Replay in Boynton Beach. I live in Delray Beach, Florida. This is in Boynton Beach. It's the next town over. And it was a very nice facility, but true door-to-door time was almost 20 minutes. And for me, I just don't see myself spending 40 minutes in a car. I'm someone, I like to walk. I live in the village. I can go a week without getting in a car.
Nice.
So to me, that was kind of a deal killer. When I moved here 4 years ago, I was only playing tennis. And so I was a 10-minute walk away from the Delray Beach Tennis Center with 30 courts. But now I'm only playing pickleball, and their pickleball courts are so crowded, and the players there are so good. It's almost too intimidating to get, playing with 4-0 players. It's kind of embarrassing for everyone if I play.
Yeah.
So
usually an open play, though, at least in ours, they'll have this court's for 3-0, this court's for 3-5, this court's for 4-0.
Yeah, they're not quite that differentiated here at the courts where I play in Delray Beach.
Okay. So Gordon, I love Delray Beach. I lived there too when I did one of my startups.
Okay. It's a fun place.
Yeah.
So Gordon, look into your entrepreneurial crystal ball. How do you see this thing playing out? I certainly share the vision of Delphi and others, where I can't imagine anyone who has a LinkedIn page today not having a digital clone that's text and audio and video in the future. But I have no idea if that's going to be 6 months from now, 6 years, or 26 years. How are you seeing this thing roll out? Because the one thing we do know is new technology scares people. And I don't know if you saw the Fox Business News interview with the CEO of Delphi, but I thought it was a pretty positive,
Yeah.
straightforward interview.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the comments. There were 3,500 comments about the
Oh,
interview.
really? Wow, I didn't even-
3,499 were negative. They were like, this is the end of the world. You're Satan. You should be put in prison. This is the sign
Really?
of the end of times.
Oh my God.
And it made me think, because when you look at the history of new technology, it's pretty much always been that way. When people saw movies the first time, they jumped out of their seats because they thought the train was actually coming. The first time people heard music from a phonograph, they thought it was possessed by Satan and demons.
Right.
To this day, there are cultures around the world, if you take their picture, they think you've robbed their soul. So there's always been opposition to any technology that captures the likeness, the voice. You know, people used to be afraid of voicemail, for that matter.
Right.
So I'm just wondering how you see this rolling out.
We'll get over that. So I'm a conservative. I'm a Christian, and I like him an early adopter of all this stuff, because at the end of the day, it's technology. So it's all user based. So if the user is bad, then they'll use the technology for bad. If the user is a good person, then they'll use it for good. The great thing about the Delphi platform is we try really, really hard to make sure that the sources that are training the clone, first of all, you have to identify yourself, who you are, prove your identity before you can create a clone with that name. Okay. And then from there, they're continuously looking at the content to make sure that the content is all attributable to you or cited correctly to whoever. And because it's not an open platform, it doesn't go out and it won't hallucinate, because it's not going out there getting all this bad data from somewhere, like the generative AIs, like the open AIs and all that stuff. So
now, let me ask you about that. I think it's pretty good, but there have been times, not as much lately, but there have been times when I've heard it give some generic advice that I know that is against what I've said. So it had to have pulled at least some content, and they've got their creativity setting that allows you.
Yes, that's
what I'm just wondering if you've experienced any hallucination problems with some of your answers. And it does allow us to self-correct the answers.
But yes, it's the creativity setting that's on there that I think dictates that part of it. So even though it might have been an answer you may not have given, the information is still in there somewhere for it to be able to pull that together. And that's also by our train. So we got to continuously make sure that we're tweaking our clones and keeping them up to date with the information, that when we hear something like that, we go in and we say, okay, well, that was a wrong answer. This is the right answer.
Yeah.
And that helps.
By the way, so everything we're doing today is automatically tomorrow morning sucked into my clone, but there's a setting so that it can only use content associated with my voice. So I won't be stealing your ideas. But if I do say something insightful today, it could be referenced in answers that my clone, my clone is tjwalker.ai. Those of you regular viewers here, you've heard me mention that before. So it's always growing. It's always learning. In theory, it's always getting better.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So where do you see the adoption rate? Because, you know, everyone says, oh, you want to be first mover, you want to be first. That's not really true. You know, Betamax was much better than the VHS, failed. Facebook was the 13th funded social media network. Friendster and the others failed. As I mentioned to you earlier, I started online training, video and audio online training in 1998, lost hundreds of thousands of dollars for years till it really paid off later on. How long is it going to take for people to get comfortable with this? Because what I am finding and what I've seen on the Delphi Facebook page as well is people are coming in, using it, thinking, oh, that's interesting. That's kind of cool. It's kind of a novelty, but that's very different from coming back or saying, I want to pay for a membership. I want to use this regularly. I want to use this as a coach the same way I would hire a top in-person golf coach or pickleball coach. What do you think it's going to take to make it really penetrate public consciousness
Well,
and
the thing
seen as its own thing?
So what I'm working on is more enterprise level. So I'm actually talking with a pickleball company to where they have clubs all over the country, to where we can interface with their scheduling, with their training. So they've got employee training videos and all that kind of content for how to operate a specific program, like it's Christmas at the club and they've got a program for that. The clone can absorb all that stuff and then be the instructor. And then be available not only for employees, but also ultimately customers to be able to interface with the system just using voice. So I think that is really when that takes off and more people are getting used to interacting. You know, we might not necessarily call that a clone. We might, you know, we come up with another name other than chatbot, because chatbot is just, dumb, is a dumb clone. So
well, I think of just that as text, and I can't get excited about that. Those have been around forever.
No, I
personally can't get excited about audio because I think of, voicemail hell and, big banks have had it. But to me, the video is what makes it seem like a live Zoom call. And people are already used to paying, whether it's a lawyer or a management consultant or, they might pay $500, $1,000 an hour for a live Zoom call with a recognized expert. So to me, that's the highest value. And that's why I've focused really all my energy on promoting the video clone as opposed to text and call.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think we're going to get there. I tell you what, I mean, Microsoft invested billions into OpenAI. If they don't adopt that into LinkedIn, I don't know why they invested the money, right? So now whether and of course they would be able to get access to this type of technology. I mean, so I'm looking forward to that, but I agree with you. I think ultimately we're going to be able to create digital versions of us that represent us at such a level to where people will be able to pay high dollar for accessing that information.
And we're getting some comments. Janice from Unconventional Advice writes in and says, thanks. Another insightful guest, Dr. Gordon Jones, an early adopter. So thanks, Janice, for watching. And if you have comments, go ahead and post them in the comments. If you're watching it on demand, you can post questions, comments. We do review those as well. Our special guest today is Dr. Gordon Jones. He's the founder of cloneyourself.cc. He has a number of different versions of his clone. You can check those out at cloneyourself.cc. And you've created a platform to help people, institutions, enterprises sort of enter this whole field of digital cloning. I mean, to me, it's just so obvious that anyone with customer support, I don't know why you wouldn't want to make it easier on your customers rather than having to sort through some big long FAQ or go through all these web pages or research a white paper, to just be able to talk to their cell phone or their computer and ask a question in their language and have it instantly come back to them. To me, it's obvious that is something that would be a good thing. For that matter,
that's another thing we haven't talked about.
Anyone who's selling a product that needs an assembly would be really helpful too. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned something that we haven't really talked about is that, hey, this is available in 26 different languages. And, all you do is when you register in to talk to the clone and you just let it know which language you want to chat it in. And so now I'm speaking Portuguese and I don't speak Portuguese. So,
Yes.
yeah.
It is quite exciting knowing, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, I woke up that morning and I was able to speak to about 1 billion people in the world because there are about 1 billion people in the world who speak English. I woke up the next morning, that was no longer true. I was able to speak to about 7 billion people because the Delphi platform, I think it's now translating to 32 separate languages. And they're the 32 are pretty much the most popular. So to be able to go from potentially speaking to 1 billion people versus virtually the whole world, other than, there's always some really small countries or small tribes where it's a very particular language spoken by a few. To me, that's just extraordinarily exciting. Sometimes
Well, I'm listening to this. So one of the biggest problems in not to talk religion per se, but is sharing the Bible is translated into the different languages. And so one of the versions of my clone talks about the Bible. And so now it can talk about it in the 32 languages. So I
guess anyone with a religious track, whether it's their own manifesto, the Quran, or whatever, can instantly translate it into 32 languages. Question coming from Janice, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, but she wants to know our thoughts on hallucinating AI and how to tweak it. With Janice, the platform we use, we can actually, if someone calls our clone, and it's a video call or an audio call, we can hear the whole thing, but we also see a transcript. So if we see it give bad information, we can edit the response. So the next time someone asks that question, they get the proper response. It can also email them the correct response. So I think early on, at one point, my clone gave the advice of, if you're nervous, practice in front of a mirror. Well, that is common advice that a lot of books on public speaking give. It happens to be advice that I think is terrible. And I tell people never, never, ever do that. So I had to quickly change it and give directions to my clients. Don't ever give that advice. My advice is practice on a video camera with your cell phone or webcam. Don't practice at a mirror. If you're practicing in a mirror, it's too easy to start thinking, is there a dent in my nose? Am I getting more wrinkle? It's a horrible idea. And you can't be practicing and doing it and evaluating all at the same time.
Right.
So, Janice, I hope if you have any additional thoughts that we haven't already touched on for Janice.
Yeah, on that. So you mentioned that so we get alerts. So if there's a question that also we can't answer, then we can create an answer for it and deliver that back to the person who had asked the question where the clone said, hey, I can't answer that right now. And then that updates the clone so that they can answer that question in the future. But yeah, from the hallucination standpoint, I think what we call the Delphi system is more of a closed system to where it's not going out and grabbing information from all over the world. That would increase hallucinations like you see within ChatGPT and other platforms like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's show people again what we're talking about. Your website is cloneyourself.cc.
Yeah.
And you've got different versions of it. And let's just take a look so people, one of the things we always do on this show is we're the opposite of a lot of shows. So many shows are like, oh, don't be overly promotional, don't be hawking your, but we want people to promote. We're about helping people become more successful by communicating more. So let's just take a look at your video here to give people a sense of what you're about.
We'll see how that goes. Future, everybody. I'm Dr. Gordon Jones, and I'm so happy that you're here at the Clone Yourself community, the first and only community for owners of AI clones. In our community, you'll be able to build your clone, whether doing it yourself or having my team do it for you. You'll also be around other like-minded, future-thinking individuals in our community, where we can learn, grow, and share knowledge as we use our clones to optimize our everyday lives. As a teaser, I'd like to introduce you to my clone. Say hello, Gordon, and tell us why you like the Clone Yourself community.
Hello to the Clone Yourself community. It's a pleasure to connect with you all. The Clone Yourself community is truly remarkable because it embodies innovation and collaboration. It allows individuals to extend their influence and share their knowledge in a personalized way. By creating digital twins, we can preserve and disseminate our expertise, fostering growth and meaningful connections.
Thanks, Gordon. From helping you clone yourself and your wisdom to cloning a loved one who's passed, Clone Yourself is here to unlock the future for you. Choose the plan that's right for you below, and we'll see you inside. Welcome to the future, everybody. I'm Dr. Gordon Jones,
Okay.
and I'm so happy.
So overall, I thought pretty good. A nice video.
I'm sure you got good critiques for me.
Well, just one question, because I noticed when I was training my own voice,
Okay.
it was really hard. Part of it is they didn't have their settings the right way. And this was, I guess, 4 or 5 months ago. The technology was going through different systems. So there was changes and we weren't being aware of them. So sometimes things would get a lot worse.
Right.
So there was a lot of back and forth. What I found, regardless of the settings I put on, it was making my voice seem flatter and more monotone than it is in real life. So I had to do several versions of creating an audio where I was almost comically overdoing. I was like, well, hello, I'm G.J. Walker, and it was just completely overdoing it, something I would never do in real life. But I was completely overemphasizing and being, bigger than life. And when I mixed that audio with others that were normal, it got me closer to my natural voice, to the point now where it's hard for me to even notice any difference. And most people say, oh, yeah, that sounds just like you, or 95% like you. I'm wondering if you went through similar things training your voice, or how did you get it just right? Because it can be a finicky thing, and it is an important thing.
Like you, I recorded different versions, and then it trained on the 4 different versions to kind of create the one. As a matter of fact, the one I was creating one for a client who's a Hawaiian tour operator. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make it the turtle crush from Finding Nemo kind of voice. Hey, dude, let's go surfing. But I couldn't use their voice, right? So I kind of used their voice, but then I did a version of it, and then I mixed the two, and then that created the voice. But it's just for demo. It's not launched, so I won't get in trouble, but it's for their demo. So that's the other thing that you can do is just do different versions of your voice, like you said, and then it'll automatically mix them, and then you got to kind of play around with the mix. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so.
I mean, I thought yours looked good and sounded good. The minor tips I have as someone who's been a media trainer for 40 years, I do recommend to people that they have the camera is a couple of inches above their eye. And then you look more like a newscaster, like any people have been watching their whole life. Because as you see in my set now, you don't see the ceiling. If we can see your ceiling, it means the camera's lower. And it's generally a less flattering look. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can still, that to me, it looks better, but I can still see your ceiling. If I see your ceiling, it means the camera is lower than your face.
So I don't sit, I stand. So what I need to do is I need to probably raise it up a little bit more.
Have a tripod. I mean, the first 4 months of this year for my daily show and my interview shows, I was standing because as a public speaker, I'm simulating more things of how to move and gesture. And then my feet started hurting so much, I finally said, maybe standing 3 hours a day is not really worth it.
Oh, I stand way more than that.
Yeah. Well, I was standing in one place, and that something triggered with my feet, and I've never had feet problems before. So I'm back to sitting now. But I do walk at least 15,000 steps a day, hit 17,000 yesterday.
Oh, nice.
But when I was standing, I simply had a tall tripod, and it was fully extended. So the camera was still a couple of inches above my. So minor tip. Otherwise,
Yeah, I
it looks
appreciate
good
that.
and sounds good. Let me ask you, how do you convince your clients that they need to do video? Because so many people, they'll never admit it, but they're profoundly insecure
Mhm.
about how they look. They think, oh, I don't have enough hair. Well, that didn't slow down you or me. They think they need to lose weight, or they have a face for radio. People have all sorts of excuses,
Right.
but really it's about insecurity. I always ask people, if your dream company, if Apple Computer called up and said, we're considering you for $1 million a year job, will you meet with us on Zoom tomorrow at 2? You wouldn't say, well, no, you'll have to call me or you'll just have to email. No, you would show up on Zoom at 2 o'clock.
That's right.
You'd get over it because you realize that's the most powerful form of communication other than being in the same room. And Apple's not going to hire, nobody's going to hire you typically if you're not willing to show up on a Zoom call or some kind of video
Right.
face.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm just wondering if you've faced any opposition from clients who somehow think, well, text is enough or my voice is enough.
So I certainly want them to get to video, but at the end of the day, I want them to become a client first.
We're not running businesses.
And then I can educate them on the benefits and
Baby steps.
that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I just had one. I said like it's another faith-based organization that their pastor's written 40 books. He gets up in front of everybody, all the time, but they just want to have the picture. So they just want to do voice. They don't want to do video.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I'm sure you've encountered this. There are people who are happy to jump up in front of 500 people and speak at the drop of a hat, put a camera on them. Oh, I'm not a TV person, and vice versa. True story. This was probably 2009. I was at CNN, and Jeannie Mose, their most well-known feature reporter, was interviewing me. I had a new this is back when DVDs were still a thing. I had a DVD on how to speak like Barack Obama, and she was interviewing me, very nice and charming, and she was saying, oh, I could never speak in front of people. I get invitations all the time to give speeches. And I'm sure she's getting offered, $100,000. She is a very famous reporter. I could never speak in front of people. Like, Jeannie, what are you talking about? You speak in front of 2 million people every day, because in addition to being on CNN and CNN International, her pieces are syndicated on broadcast TV stations all over the world. But in her mind, completely different thing. Talking to one person with one camera operator versus a room with even 50 people there. It just freaked her out. So it can work the other way. People can be very comfortable speaking in front of large crowds, but put a camera on them and they shrink up.
I think that's why the TEDx has done so well, is because the locals run the TEDx events. And so they can kind of convince the person that, hey, this is just a local event, even though they're recording it for everybody on TED. And then they take them through the training program, right, to make sure that they can nail down their 20-minute TED talk.
Yeah. Although, interestingly, I went to a TEDx in Boca Raton maybe 6 months ago. And I saw the worst speaker I've ever seen in my life, frankly. And I also saw one of the absolute best speakers I've ever seen in my life there. And guess what? It was the same person. There was a woman there. There was a woman there who lifetime experience in healthcare field. And she was saying, the number one thing that really takes people from living independently is a fall when they lose their balance. And, once you have a fall, basically you're in the nursing home and it's Wheel of Fortune, and that's about it. Her big tip was, if you just stand when putting on your sock each day, it requires so much balance, and you don't realize how much it helps. So anything you can do to not sit down on your bed or a chair when putting on your sock could extend your ability to live independently for years. And she completely fell apart. She froze in her speech. I think she had tried to memorize. It was awkward for everyone. She kind of stood on stage, panicked, for like a minute, had to kind of run off crying.
Oh, really? Wow.
The whole event ended. She kind of came back again to try to redo it. I mean, everyone felt bad for her. But here's the thing. A day later, a week later, I couldn't tell you anything any of the other speakers said. And most of them were polished and great eye contact and gestures and commanding voice and exuded confidence. They didn't say anything memorable or particularly useful to me. And she did.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a reminder to me is it's not that your performance doesn't matter, but having a really, really strong message that helps people should be your starting point. If you got that, you can make mistakes and people will still remember your message. I think about her every day when I'm putting on my sock because, you know, I did it, I guess, both ways before. Now I'm very conscious about don't be lazy and sit down. Stand and put on your sock.
You ought to reach out to her and
I should, you know, I thought of that as recently as yesterday. I should, because I don't remember her name, but I'm sure it would be pretty easy to find. And
so
and
that brings up a good
positive
point
feedback.
for clone training. So should we train? So all of my sessions, yeah, it asks a question at the end. So the question is should we train the clone to emphasize a point in its conversations that will teach them something?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on the clone. I mean, that's the beauty. It's like saying, should every coach or should every tutor or every therapist try to make a point? Well, the point of a therapist is to sometimes listen and provide empathy and let people get things off their chest. So, I mean, to me, that's the beauty of the cloning technology is it really takes whatever expertise is in someone's brain, it makes it available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in any language, any way someone wants to access it. To me, probably the least interesting part of this is a clone's ability to answer a question because Google does that, ChatGPT does that, Quora does that.
Right.
Where I try to guide people when they're in my clone is to, okay, let's have you practice giving a speech and my clone will give you feedback. Let's have you practice a media interview and I will give you feedback. So I would want you, let's say you're going on CNBC to talk about cloneyourself.cc. I say, please come on and let's simulate the interview where I'm asking you questions and it's recorded and my clone gives you feedback and then you can watch the video. So to me, what I'm trying to do is really create experiences, learning experiences or transformational experiences. I think that's what people will pay for.
Yep.
And that's what people value. And that's why I've sort of glommed onto this, the metaphor of it being like a coach, as opposed to a digital twin or digital expert or digital Q&A, because I think people value coaches more than anything else. You know, you think of it, you know, not meaning any disrespect to a teacher, but when you look at what teachers are paid versus, you know, tutors, $20 an hour versus coaches, you know, the coach of professional football teams, baseball teams, they're often paid $10 million plus. And I'm not saying money is the only thing that matters, but they're given respect. People listen to them because it's a long-term engagement of constant feedback to help people get better and better and better. So to me, that's what I'm hoping the coach can become. But short term, I don't think anyone else is really, the public is not thinking about a clone like that. So let me tell you what I'm doing, and I want to know what you're doing in the interim step. What I'm doing now is I have 200 plus online video-based courses on public speaking, communications, personal development, goal setting, things like that. So now, in the last couple of months, around lecture 3 or 4, I say, hey, by the way, this video-based course now comes with its own digital coach. So you don't have to go through the course on my agenda and my time frame. You can just stop right now, ask my clone a question or practice something with my clone, and you can take control. You can still go through the whole course as you want.
Right.
That's the linear way. That's doing everything the way I want to, because that's the schedule I set. The clone gives power back to the student. So I'm trying to whet people's appetite, and thousands of questions are coming in a week that way. So it's whetting people's appetite. But I anticipate a day where people don't really want an online video course anymore. They want a clone coach. And sometimes people hear me say that, and they think, well, that doesn't make any sense. Of course, there are going to be courses. So what I'll toss this to you. If you have, someone worth, hundreds of millions of dollars in your community, and all their friends are now playing pickleball, does that person necessarily want to take an online course on pickleball or a big group session? Or do they want to hire the absolute best pickleball coach they can to just come play with them?
Yeah.
I think it's the latter, right? They want to coach. A course, to me, has always been about saving money. If you're using one teacher and you're dispersing the cost through 30 students, it's 1/30th the cost at some level, no matter who's paying for it, government or someone. But if you didn't have to worry about cost, why would you go into a big classroom or a course? Have the one-on-one instructor. As Steve Jobs famously pointed out, Alexander the Great, he didn't go to a third grade classroom with 50 other students. He had Aristotle come to the castle or come to the palace and personally teach him and personally tutor him. And that, to me, is what's so fantastic about the possibility of clones. But I want to know more about your thoughts on how this evolves from being a mere curiosity, which, in fairness, at least with the people I've tried it on, for a lot of people, it's just a curiosity at this point.
Yeah.
How do we get it to where it really is a meaningful experience that, people talk about their digital coach the same way a lot of people talk about their in-person pickleball coach, or their therapist, or their life coach, or all these other things that are done in real life?
So the way that I think that this is ultimately going to be exposed to more and more people is if the clone becomes a part of the online course now. So like I said, we're in the pickle zone. We're using it. We've got the video to teach you what you need to learn about your serve or whatever. And there's 10 principles there, but you don't necessarily have to do the principles in order. Mm-hmm. So I think eventually we'll get away from the video because the clone will be able to pull up a section of the video that demonstrates exactly how to do the serve, but the clone will trigger that. Mm-hmm. And then the clone will know where you are in the process of learning and be able to pull out a lesson that it wants to teach you that day or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think eventually it's going to be going to the clone for your lessons. The clone's going to know where you are in the process of its ultimate model, and just automatically do that without having to be real structured about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's going to ultimately become as pretty close to human as the technology will allow us over time.
And in some ways better, because perfect example. I mean, I do think real humans are some value that are superior to clones. So don't get me wrong. And I don't think anything's going to completely replace someone wanting to talk to a real human. I don't think that's going to be replaced.
Right.
So sometimes the human answers, someone will call me on a show, ask a question, and then we'll ask the clone the question. Sometimes I do think my answer is better. Sometimes they're kind of the same, but sometimes the clone actually gives a better answer. It can give more detail. It has more patience. I mean, sometimes someone will ask me, DJ, I'm nervous before I give a speech. What should I do? And I've heard the question so many times, I can be impatient. I'm like, for the 10,000th time, practice on video until you like what you see.
Right.
My clone's not impatient. It will give a much more detailed response, give them more logic to get up to that, and not express any any impatience. Also, if someone says TJ clone, who gave the best Academy Award acceptance speech in the last 15 years, and what did they do? My clone has perfect recall and can rattle off, Matthew McConaughey,
Right.
2030.
Right.
I can't remember it after 24 hours. So
Right.
in some ways, it's actually better. Hey, Gordon, I want to give you the same respect we give all of our guests here. We played your video, but I also like to just give people an opportunity for, a minute, 90 seconds to promote like crazy anything and everything, any website, any book, any call to action you have. And there's no follow-up questions. There's no grilling. It's just pure promotion time for you as a thank you for your valuable time being with us as we're about to close out. So I'm actually going to take myself off the screen and ask you to promote to this audience anything you want to promote starting now.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. So the first thing that's closest to my heart right now is my wife's nonprofit. It's called Aparo Academy, APPARO Academy.org. And she's a speech pathologist, and she's created a preschool for kids with disabilities that pushes into the school the speech, occupational, physical, and medical care that they need while they're also learning and preparing for kindergarten. So that's the thing at the top. AparoAcademy.org. My primary business is actually in pickleball, so picklezone.com, where I run the training center for pickleball alongside of the professional world champion Scott Moore, who's on all the videos, who does all the video trainings. And we've created his clone, which sits next to every lesson within the course, so you can ask questions and interact with his clone. The future there, and like I said earlier in our discussion, is that we want to ultimately be able to have the clone see what's going on the court while you're playing, and to give you immediate feedback, maybe even through your Apple Watch while you're playing. Say, ping, hey, Dodo Bird, you keep hitting to their forehand. You need to hit to their backhand, something like that. So lots going on in the world of pickleball with picklezone.com there. And then, of course, cloneyourself.cc we've been talking about the whole time. But if you have any interest in looking or talking about how to clone yourself, then just go to cloneyourself.cc and you can communicate with us and learn and talk to my clone, talk to Scott Moore's clone, talk to Dr. John Allred's clone, who's a pediatrician, a personal development guru by the name of Tom Butler Bowden. And we are adding more and more clones to that community every day, so we can just build a community around all this exciting technology. So,
all right. And last big question. What level are you in pickleball? Are you a 4.5, 4.5?
Oh, no. So I've only been playing a year and a half.
Okay.
But I was a tennis player.
Yeah.
So right now I'm playing in the World Championships at 3.5 in Dallas in 2 weeks.
Okay.
My DUPR score, DUPR, says that I'm a 3.6. But it also depends on I'm playing singles in the World Championships. But when you're playing doubles, it all depends on who your partner is.
Yeah.
So it is so funny. I always play to the level of my partner. So if my partner's doing real well, I do real well. And if my partner's not doing well,
Unfortunately, I bring my partner down to my level.
Yes. So 3.5.
Well, we wish you luck in the championship. And again, Gordon Jones, thank you for being our guest today. Cloneyourself.cc. Reach out to him there for more information. Thanks so much.
I appreciate your time too.